segment, we are doing a blockchain forks airdrop. So if I can have to the stage, please, Benedict Chan from BitGo. If I can have Richard Ma, the CEO of QuantStamp, and Cliff Zhu, CEO of HADRON Ai. And our moderator will be Leon D. from WeTrust.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Leon D. I work in marketing at WeTrust. And here we have a really awesome panel for you guys today. Benedict Chan from BitGo, Richard Ma from QuantStamp, and Cliff Zhu from HADRON. So I have a Bitcoin wallet, I have a crypto wallet, and I have, I hold some Bitcoins, Ether, and of course Trustcoin. And recently I noticed that I suddenly started seeing all these other cryptos that I never bought in my wallet. Things like, well, some of the Bitcoin forks, for example, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, but also altcoins like Omise Go and Stellar Lumens. So in this panel, I want to find out why these coins are showing up in my wallet and possibly in many of your wallets, where they're coming from, and how those coins are showing up, how these forks and airdrops are being implemented. So before we start, I just want each of our illustrious panelists to briefly introduce yourselves, and let's start with Benedict.
Okay, hey, hi guys. My name is Benedict Chan, and I'm the Director of Engineering at BitGo. So BitGo is an enterprise wallet platform that powers some of the top exchanges in the world and payment systems. So we support Bitcoin wallets, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and so on.
Hi, I'm Richard. I'm the CEO of QuantStamp. We just recently finished a token sale, arguably one of the most successful in October and November. I'm super stoked about airdrops, so I'm here to share my enthusiasm. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cliff Zhu. I guess I'm that last head on but that's actually not me. That's Amin from the previous panel. So we are doing our company is decentralized AI supercomputing with a focus on mobile. And so our HADRON AI's app lets users monetize their plugged-in cell phones so that we can run distributed machine learning on them. And once they get the app installed, they can earn additional cryptocurrency by participating in bounties that our customers set. So one example, submitting videos and images. So one example would be like, if Tesla or Dongfeng Jitse Gongsi needs like 10 million miles of driving data, they can set a bounty for that for our users, and our users can just use our app, film their drive to work, earn cryptocurrency. Very simple, very hard to implement. And so we basically validate that data using our own custom trained AI system. So that eliminates all middlemen, eliminates costs. So we actually take 0 fees from these bounties, which is, I think, in the spirit of crypto. And the validation using AI systems is very non-trivial. So that's what we're working on. And yeah, so I also am a big fan of airdrops, but maybe not in the way you guys might think.
All right, so let's start with simple, with the basics. Benedict, could you tell us what an airdrop is? And then Richard and Cliff, if you could tell us why your organizations might want to perform an airdrop.
Okay, so what an airdrop is, in my definition, and there could be many, is that you look at the existing owners of crypto, for example, existing owners of Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you send them, or you make it such that somehow they have now access to a new token which may be worth something.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that. So I think, with airdrops, you're kind of raising awareness for a new project. Usually it's a project that's not as well known. And for example, with Omise Go, they did multiple rounds of airdrops, and it was very instrumental to their success because they airdropped a large amount of their supply. They got Vitalik Buterin on board because of the airdrop, and incentivized the whole Ethereum community to get on board. So I think that's part of it.
So I guess I'll just add one last bit, which is just that There's some kind of confusion between airdrops and forks in terms of, there's like, I guess I would think of like two different kinds of airdrops. There's probably more, but what do I know? I mean, so there's the airdrops where you give basically free coins to people, like almost like a promotional item. In our case, we're doing an airdrop right now where people, we want the coin to be distributed widely so people are incentivized to install the app. So that's one kind of airdrop. You know, they have to do something to get the coin. Another kind of airdrop is the kind where it's like, hey, you know, like Omi's, like Richard's example, where it's like everyone who, you know, currently owns a certain kind of coin, let's say Ethereum or Bitcoin, you know, if you go to this website or do these actions, you can receive our new coin. And it's kind of like a way to, it's like almost like a different kind of ICO where it's a way to distribute very widely to a huge audience, to an existing audience, a bunch of coin. And it's kind of a little different from a fork, where a fork, you know, obviously they're actually taking the existing source code of that project and splitting off. So that the airdrop is a little bit more, I guess you'd say it's like you can start a separate project that has like its own completely different source code very easily, get it up to speed, get a huge distribution because people like free stuff. But yeah, I think that's all I'd add.
So I noticed that some wallets support these airdrops and some wallets don't seem to. So I was wondering what are some of the technical challenges in implementing the airdrops, both from a wallet perspective and from the organization's perspective. Ben, if you could start on that.
Yeah, sure. This is quite an interesting one because we look at this every day. In fact, right now we're looking at some of them. So, you know, there's, you know, two main ways that we've been seeing these airdrops or, you know, forks. The first one is on Bitcoin type coins, and the second one is on Ethereum. So for Ethereum, many of the airdrops are ERC20, you know, interface compatible. So that's not that hard to, you know, for a wallet that supports Ethereum to also support these airdropped coins. In fact, this is one of the reasons that, you know, a lot of these tokens like to give off some free airdropped coins is because when you look in your wallet, suddenly you see these new tokens and you're like, oh, I should do something with them. And if it's going to be a utility token, that could be interesting, right? You could maybe use it to stream some videos or do something with it. And then on the other side of things, there's, you know, forks of Bitcoin. So with forks of Bitcoin, I don't think that the original intent was to do an airdrop. That was not the main reason why a lot of people fork Bitcoin. For example, the biggest, or, you know, the fork of Bitcoin, which is worth the most, Bitcoin Cash, originally was hoping that when they did their fork, they would be called Bitcoin because they wanted to do a so-called hard fork, which is not backwards compatible. And some of them call it, you know, an extension of Bitcoin where you get bigger blocks. So that was not really the intention to really give people free money. But what actually happened was now you have two different coins, and one of them is Bitcoin and one of them is Bitcoin Cash. And a lot of customers are asking for, you know, as a wallet company, a lot of customers that have our Bitcoin wallets ask for Bitcoin Cash wallets. So then it's kind of incentivization for them to ask and for us to start implementing Bitcoin Cash wallets as well. Technically, how to implement that depends on how far a fork Bitcoin Cash is from Bitcoin. Now, in the case of Bitcoin Cash, they did make some changes to the transaction format in order to be replay safe, which is actually a good thing. And we had to do a bit of changes there. Oftentimes, sometimes people would change the address format as well. And those are all technical, you know, challenges that have to be considered when supporting these forks. Also for large-sized wallets like ours, when we are, you know, having to monitor these millions of addresses at once, it results in us having to do a certain amount of work in order to migrate or support these secondary wallets.
Oh yeah, I just want to follow up on the work aspect of that. So this kind of from the technical perspective, you can do like a widely distributed airdrop, or you can do a really targeted airdrop. So for the really widely distributed airdrops, actually results in a lot of technical work and also transaction fees. Because if you imagine, if you're gonna get every single Ethereum address to airdrop to, like Omise Go or the View tokens, which everyone seems to have now, that is a lot of addresses, and afterwards you have to send out your token supply to each of those addresses. So what's normally done is they actually pick like a minimum amount to have in your wallet, for example, 0.1 Ether, to airdrop to those addresses, because that reduces the total number that you're sending out. And then I think for the highly targeted ones, I actually prefer those. So for example, right now for QuantStamp, what we're going to do is have projects that we audit airdrop into our supporter list, because that's highly targeted. It's a lot less transaction fees to go through all of them. And with these like crypto kitties, now the transaction fees are like 70 cents per transaction. It can really add up if you're airdropping to like 500,000 addresses. So, and then from the business perspective, I would say, with these highly distributed airdrops, you get a lot of interest in your project if your project has a staking or utility element to it. Because then maybe they can use it to stake or to use the product. If there's no utility element to it, what it just results in is everyone just gets the tokens and sells it on the exchange. It's not that useful. So I think it's better for projects that have utility to do these.
Yeah, I agree with Richard there. Richard and I have actually discussed airdrops a couple times, and I think we agree that the targeted one is, I think, also the way to go. And one thing you need to keep in mind if you're going to do an airdrop for your project is that it's going to attract a different kind of audience than the people who are interested in actually participating in your community, really getting involved in the project. A lot of the people, our early supporters, they don't even really want the airdrop. They want to see the product. They want to get the app installed on their phones. They want to actually start mining, or in our case, I guess, working. And it's a different demographic than the people who come in for airdrops. I like the approach of like using airdrops to reward people, but not necessarily as an incentive mechanism. It works okay, but you get what you, I guess, pay for in a sense. And on the really broad airdrop space, like where you're dropping to everyone for Ethereum, it's also not really like, some people view it like a shortcut, like to the ICO, or it's like a ICO substitute. So basically you airdrop to everyone who has an Ethereum address on this date, and then you keep like 5% or something, or 10% for development team and stuff. I mean, it's not something that I would necessarily do. The transactions, the costs are high. You have to also really ask, like, is that your target audience? Are you really trying to just anyone who has an Ethereum address? I mean, like, is that really what you want to accomplish with your company? It's almost, it's kind of like a shortcut, I think, and I think it can work for some, but not for others, I guess, not for us.
So following up with what Richard said, Richard, you mentioned that you prefer these targeted airdrops for people who will find real utility for these tokens that you're airdropping. There are a lot of people in this room who are starting token crowd sales now. At what point in the development process would you recommend performing an airdrop? And is it pre-beta, during beta, or even during the crowd sale stage? And why do you make that sort of decision? And also, how do you specifically target it to those people? How do you narrow it down to members in your community?
So we had like a very successful collaboration with Blockfolio during our token sale, and we actually chose not to do an airdrop into Blockfolio, and here's why. I think that the value of the airdrop is proportional to the audience. So if you can find an audience where everyone participates in the token sale, then if you airdrop to them during the crowd sale, you might actually reduce the amount you collect, because they're getting some tokens and they're wondering, I'm getting these free tokens, should I still contribute? So that kind of reduces the value of actually doing it during the token sale. I think what's more valuable is to do it during the development phase of the project, because at that point you could receive attention from people who are going to stake on your network, people who are going to do mining, and also draw media attention at that point, because having gone through a token sale, you get a lot of media coverage going up and to the crowd sale. But then the coverage actually drops drastically after you finish the token sale. So it's a good way to kind of bring on new supporters when you actually have the network up and running, or getting the testnet up and running. Because ultimately with these blockchain projects, a lot is dependent on the support of the community. It's mostly like if you're running nodes, you need a larger active community to even support the security of your transactions. So I think that's like when it's super valuable. And then in terms of targeted, like for people who are doing token sales, it is a good idea to collaborate. And I've seen this done successfully with Kyber, where there was a company that airdropped into Kyber supported list of 20,000 people. And they were able to close their $50 million token sale this way. So I think like if you're a little known company that airdrops into a popular company with into their list of contributors, that's super effective. Yeah. So that's my views on that.
Cliff, any additional thoughts on that in terms of what HADRON has done?
Well, just make sure you get permission from the project. Well, I guess you can just airdrop directly into another project. that could work. But I mean, I don't know. For us, I mean, I have to say that, yeah, definitely the timing of the airdrop is super important. You don't want to undermine your token sale. You don't want to confuse people. It's like, wait, I have to buy them, but now I get them for free. It's kind of, it's a confusing, it can be a confusing element. And again, I think it's just a question of just what kind of people are you attracting with this airdrop? What's your goal? Why do you want people who want, who are curious maybe about the project, but they maybe just want to come for a couple free coins. So you have to really be careful about when you actually do the actual airdrop, and also I think like how much you want to do. You definitely don't want to give out so much that you're undermining people who are really supporting you, backing you, with their hard-earned fiat or crypto.
So the other topic we're talking about is forks. So forks are the other occasions when people see new cryptos just appearing in their wallets. So Benedict, could you tell us about what forks are and the technical challenges for a wallet in terms of supporting a fork?
Sure, okay. I think we kind of went a little bit into that. Some forks have airdrops and some don't. So with forks in general, I think we can talk about it if you do it in a context of software, and a fork is kind of like a copy or a split using a very similar code base but with some different modifications. One of the earliest well-known forks in Bitcoin was a soft fork to add P2SH, which adds multi-sig support. And that fork was not that controversial. It was backwards compatible because it was a soft fork, and it added capability. So what that fork did was it was kind of adding additional rules onto the network for what a valid transaction looked like. And so that was pretty safe, and there was no free money being generated there. Then, kind of last year, we saw the first big hard fork ever in a public blockchain, and actually that was the Ethereum Classic fork. So during the time of the DAO, a lot of Ethereum had been stolen, and it was a controversial decision at the time by the Ethereum Foundation to go ahead and do a hard fork to invalidate all the stolen amounts of Ether. And what actually resulted in was, at first, it looked like the network had a consistent view of what defined an Ethereum token. But after a while, and actually what really triggered it was a group of people that didn't really believe in the idea of having a central group kind of define what was a valid Ethereum token. One of the big exchanges, Poloniex, decided to list this forked Ethereum Classic and gave it a value. And what is interesting then was that actually I didn't expect it, but the combination of the two different forks was higher in price than the original Ethereum, which was before the fork, if you take into account the drop after the hacking of the DAO. So that was pretty interesting. And then this year, we had, I think the larger types of forks were like the Bitcoin Cash fork, in which it turned out was a replay safe hard fork, where what they really did was they took Bitcoin's code and they modified it, but instead of starting the ledger off from scratch, like what was done with Litecoin. So Litecoin, if you owned Bitcoin, you never owned any Litecoin. You would have to have obtained it somehow. With Bitcoin Cash, they captured the ledger at a certain point, and that, semi-airdropped a bunch of Bitcoins to, the previous owners on the Bitcoin chain. So what's interesting there is that then you get a bunch of other dynamics, which is first, provided you have enough people that actually believe in Bitcoin Cash, some of them are going to hold on to that, and they're going to ask the existing wallets to start supporting it. Then those that don't actually want to hold on to it, it's very interesting, because then they will even more want to sell away this value that they have been given to them, or suddenly have this new Bitcoin Cash. And they're going to be starting to ask the exchanges, hey, where's my Bitcoin Cash? I had a Bitcoin in June, and Bitcoin Cash forked after that, so I should deserve some of that. And so they see it as free money. So it's a big, kind of question then as to which forks should every exchange or every wallet support. And in some ways, in this case, certain organizations were even, forced to support these forks, which had pseudo airdrop capability.
All right, so before we wrap things up, I just want to have one last question, which is just between forks and airdrops for lay people who have crypto wallets. They're getting a bit confused about whether their new coins are coming from a fork or an airdrop, and they're getting a bit confused as to why these cryptos are showing up. So I wanted to ask each of you what you think can be done better in terms of promoting these airdrops and forks and helping the broader community understand what's going on.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's kind of the forks and airdrops that are not supported by the community, and then the ones that are actually contentious or backed by solid community support. And there's a kind of solid distinction between the two. So with Bitcoin Cash, there was a solid community support from that, like from mostly China, that really legitimized it, because you had like the big blockers who had this kind of ethical and philosophical reasons why they wanted to have this other coin. And then you have the coins that kind of do it for promotional reasons. So I think in terms of media acknowledgement, the former ones where it's contentious, such as the Segwit 2x fork, you get a lot more coverage of those as well, because there's actually people speaking on both sides, arguing for and against it, and that's like a real difference in a fork. In an airdrop, sometimes it's opt-in and sometimes it's not. When it's not opt-in, you just get these coins like Xenon and View, and they're kind of worthless because you didn't have the discussion and community involvement there. So kind of a difference there.
I don't have much to add except, I guess, just my opinion, which would be, I think the promotional forks that are essentially just clones of other coins, it's kind of not my thing, I guess. I'm sure there's a reason. Something like Segwit 2x, like it's actually solving like a technical, I guess, perceived issue. And so, those may be somewhat unavoidable. I think, I actually think it's detrimental to crypto in general to have all these, have all this confusion around lots of these new coins and forks happening. I think as it is, everyone here is probably really smart, they understand crypto, but I think if you try to explain it to your neighbor or to like your great uncle or something, try to explain to them just like basic crypto. It's complicated enough, and then you explain to them, oh, by the way, these things will fork and clone themselves, and they'll just appear in your wallets if your wallet is correctly engineered, and if not, then they have to go and claim. You know, I think it's not really. I hope that it will stabilize somewhat, but we'll have to see. And I think when there's money to be made, we'll probably see these things continuing to happen. So, yeah.
All right, thanks to Benedict, Richard, and Cliff for a very informative panel, and thanks for everyone for being a great audience.
All right, thank you very much.